Ghostbusters, starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis. Coming to save the world. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters.
Yours truly, Brevin Thompson, is back, and I bet you're probably wondering where I have been for the past few weeks and why I haven't done another video in a while. Mostly, long story short, I've been pretty busy with my personal life and also with a lot of things going on with work. And also, I did see like a few new releases during this past month. I've checked out Eternals, and I did check out Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I will be reviewing pretty soon. But I will be going over what I'll be doing next on my channels after this video, so yeah. So for this video, I decided to talk about Ghostbusters, a beloved comedy classic from the 80s, directed by Ivan Reitman, starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Ernie Hudson, and William Atherton. This film is one of my favorite films from the 80s. In fact, it's one of my favorite movies, period, because I grew up loving this film as a kid, and almost everybody knows how good Ghostbusters is. I mean, a lot of my family loves this film. A lot of my friends love this film, and even my girlfriend loves this film because Ghostbusters is so damn good. Because it's a film that has like the perfect blend of both comedy and horror. Because this is the type of film that just works so well, and even the sequels and even the reboot can't really capture the magic that the first film gave us, because it got everything right. It got the cast right, it got the writing right, the comedy right, the horror right, and it worked perfectly back in 1984. So some of you may or may not know this, but when Dan Aykroyd at the time was coming up with the idea for Ghostbusters, the original title that he came up with was Ghost Mashers. So in his original story, he would have these guys in SWAT uniforms, and they were armed with wands instead of a proton pack. His original story was set in the future, and he would have these guys like go through time and various dimensions, battling huge ghosts and other paranormal creatures during this adventure. And Ivan Reitman, the director, thought that the idea of this script coming to life on film would be too costly to produce, so they just stuck with the idea of having a group of people starting their own ghost catching business and catching ghosts, which I think we can all agree was a really fun and interesting thing to see on the big screen. But still, I mean, this film got made today. I think it would have been interesting for me personally to see that original idea come to life, because honestly, it would have been pretty interesting and pretty cool to see. So when a trio of parapsychologists, Peter Beckman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spengler are removed from their university, they decide to start their own ghost-catching business as professional paranormal investigators and eliminators. So if there's something strange in the neighborhood, who are you gonna call? What makes this film work for me is the cast and this film's mixture of comedy and horror, because it just works so well. Because mostly when it comes to the cast, I mean, they all have great chemistry. I mean, mostly when you have Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis all working together, and eventually when they have Ernie Hudson, especially in the third act, I mean, they all worked perfectly together, and Harold Ramis, rest in peace, he was perfect in this film. Now, when it comes to the horror and the comedy, like I mentioned, it still works even after all these years. Of course, in the opening, when the Ghostbusters first go to the New York Public Library and they encountered their first ghost, they had no idea what they're gonna do, because I mean, they don't even have their equipment yet. I mean, all they have is a PKE meter and a camera, and even when Peter, played by Bill Murray, is like, "What do we do?" And he grabs Ray's ear. He says, like, "Can you just come over here for a second, please? Like, what do we do?" And then he goes to try to talk to the ghost, and she just turns and goes, "Shh," which is creepy. So Ray suggests that they just get her, and then we see her like monster form, and then they just piss off. It's just so fucking funny. And of course, at the apartment, we see Dana, played by Sigourney Weaver. In her apartment, I mean, she sees like eggs like just like popping out of their shells, and she opens her fridge, and there's like this dimensional portal or something, and she sees like a creature saying Zool. So she goes to the Ghostbusters, and Peter goes back with her. And when he opens the fridge, there's nothing but food. He's like, "Look at all the junk food." It's so funny. And of course, when they go to the hotel, the capture Slimer, I've always loved the moment when Peter is slimed. He's like, I feel so funky. And of course, I mean, they capture Slimer, and then we get that awesome montage that still holds up after all these years with that catchy Ray Park Jr. theme song, Ghostbusters. And there's something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. I've always loved that song. It's just so catchy, and as a great movie theme song, it still works, and I have always loved that song. And the exchange of dialogue between Winston and Janine, I have always loved, when he's first applying to become a Ghostbuster. Do you believe in UFOs, astral projection, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, low trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the theory of Atlantis? If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say. Now, when it comes to the character of Walter Peck, played by William Atherton, I know, like, a lot of people, most of the fan base kind of, like, hate this character. He kind of is a dickhead in this movie, especially with his treatment of the Ghostbusters. But he's mostly just doing his job as a guy who just represents the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And there are even some articles pointing out that Walter Peck was actually right about how illegal the Ghostbusters operation was, because of them, like, even on their first job, when they go to the hotel to catch Slimer, they haven't even test their equipment and violating many health and safety rules. And in a way, they're kind of operating outside the law. And I can understand, like, how, like, some articles would kind of agree with Walter Peck being right about how illegal the Ghostbusters operations are, but still, but I've always loved the moment when, well, I'll get to that in a second, but yeah. What I've always loved was this one line from Peter when they go to see the mayor at City Hall. This one line about Peck I have always loved.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
When it comes to the scenes with Dana and Lewis, played by Sigourney Weaver, and Rick Moranis, getting possessed by the terror dogs, when it comes to Dana first, she's visited by Peter, and there's like a little bit of she's trying to seduce Peter in a way, but of course, she's under the influence of the terror dog, and that's possessing her. And of course, when we hear that deep demonic voice saying, "There is no Dana, only Zool," I've always laughed when Peter's like, "What a lovely singing voice you must have." And of course, when she starts levitating off the bed, it's a kind of a homage to The Exorcist in a way. And of course, when Lewis is possessed, and eventually he's caught by the cops and brought over to the Ghostbusters, and when Egon's trying to figure out what's going on with him, is the moments with Lewis, especially when he's possessed, it provides a bit of comedy, and I've always loved that. So eventually Peck comes back, and he has a warrant, and he has a guy shut down the Ghostbusters containment unit containing all the ghosts, which blows up their firehouse where they were living at. And it releases all the ghosts. So of course, Peck blames the Ghostbusters for the explosion, and of course they're arrested. And they come to the conclusion that the apartment that Dana lives in is a doorway of sorts for a Sumerian god named Gozer. And there was a cult that performed rituals on the roof that were intended to bring about the end of the world. And of course, the Ghostbusters are released and they're brought over to City Hall to talk to the mayor about everything that's been going on with the ghosts running rampant around New York. And when it comes to, like, the last moments that we see of Peck in this film, I've always loved it when the Ghostbusters convince the mayor to, like, go over to the hotel so they can save the world from Gozer. And when the mayor forces Peck to leave, that is just so satisfying. Now we get to our third act with the Ghostbusters going to the hotel to face up against Gozer. And when Gozer first makes her appearance, and right when... I've always loved it when Ray tries to, like, convince her to, like, stop everything that's going on right now with the ghosts running rampant in New York. And the moment when she asks Ray, "Are you a god?" Ray just turns around and he turns to Peter. He's like, no. So she, like, blasts them with lightning. Winston says, "Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes!" Of course, they battle Gozer, and she disappears for a bit and becomes a voice in the sky, and she forces the Ghostbusters to choose the form of her destructive form, which, of course, turns out to be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And Egon concludes that the best way to stop Stay Puft is to close the gate by crossing their streams, and which he advised the Ghostbusters earlier not to do. Don't cross the streams. Try to imagine all life as you know it stopped instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light. So they defeat Stay Puft by crossing the streams, and Lewis and Dana are back to normal. And that ends one of the best comedies ever from the 80s. It's one of my personal favorite comedies. It's one of the best films ever made, honestly. When it comes to Ghostbusters, like I mentioned, it works still. When it comes to Ghostbusters, it still works after all these years. I never get bored of watching this film. And I've seen Ghostbusters in every way that I possibly could. I've watched it on VHS, I've watched it on DVD, I've watched it on Blu-ray, 4K, I've seen it in theaters for an anniversary release. That's how much I love Ghostbusters. It means so much to me. And it's just a perfect film. And of course, Ghostbusters deserves an A+. Hallelujah. 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 So what do y'all think of Ghostbusters? Let me know in the comments below. And also, there's like a list of like videos I plan on doing later on this channel, so get ready. So next up, after my video for Ghostbusters, I'm going to be doing Ghostbusters 2. I'll be doing Ghostbusters Afterlife. Then after that, I'll be wrapping up my videos for The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I have filmed, but I'm still in the process of editing. But they're very long, so there's like a lot of editing to do on those. And then I'm going to do Eternals, then The Matrix Reloaded, and The Matrix Revolutions before Matrix Resurrections is released. I hope to get that done soon, fingers crossed. And Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home before No Way Home comes out, which I'm really looking forward to. So, yeah. Pretty long list. Plus, there's my Christmas special, which I definitely can't wait for. So, yeah. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me. And if you need a new review, who are you gonna call? I'll leave. Maybe I'll leave that there. Yeah, I'll just leave that there. I just wanted to put that joke in there.